Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hope everybody is doing well. Today I'm going to be reading you some stories from the Haunted Canada series. If I pronounce anything wrong, I do apologize. The Screaming Tunnel, Niagara Falls, Ontario. The tunnel running under the railway tracks of Warner Road in Niagara Falls, Ontario, is such a spooky place that Canadian filmmaker David Cronenberg used it as the backdrop for a gruesome murder in his 1983 film The Dead Zone, based on a book with the same name by the master of the horror story author Stephen King. But there seems to be no way of verifying which one of the scary stories associated with the tunnel has made it such a spooky place. One version of the tunnel's tale of terror dates back more than a century. It involves a girl trapped inside a nearby house where a fire broke out. The girl finally managed to escape the blazing inferno. Crazed with pain, she ran from the inferno into the tunnel with her clothes ablaze and collapsed and died there. Another version was a girl being set on fire there after her father learned that his wife had won custody of their daughter following a bitter divorce battle. And still another version has a young girl being assaulted and murdered in the tunnel. There are no records of such tragedies or hideous crimes taking place in the tunnel, but the stories about why it's haunted remain to this day, and over the years many local young people have dared to check out if it really is. Late at night they slowly enter the tunnel and light a match. When the match goes out, they're supposed to hear the screams of a young girl. Those who do usually run screaming from the tunnel themselves. Those who don't have a sigh of relief. Fear around the campfire, Dunnville, Ontario. The tale of Anson Miner is probably an urban myth. A story people claim to be true because it happened, or so they say, to someone they knew or to someone who knew someone who knew. The terror associated with the story rests not in its truth, but with the experiences of young campers who have believed in it over the years and been scared out of their wits by it. A popular version of Miner's tale says he lived in Dunnville, Ontario, on the shores of Lake Erie in the 1920s. He lost his leg in a tractor accident on his farm. He was fitted with a wooden leg, but he hated it, and coping with the loss of a limb slowly drove him mad. He finally took his overpowering frustration out on his family, murdering his wife and son. It's said he died several years later in a hospital for the criminally insane. After Miner died, his heirs sold the property, and in the 1940s, new owners turned it into a summer camp called Camp Kavutsa. Unaware at first of the rumors, the miner's ghost wasn't in any rush to leave his old homestead. Over the years, a few campers did see a wispy shape in the woods, so the belief that Miner was haunting the camp grew stronger, especially when camp counselors used that notion to persuade new campers to hurry up and get inside at bedtime. To make their point more effectively, a few counselors embellished the story a bit, adding the well-known fact that Miner really hated campers staying on his land, and that he had a ball and chain attached to his ankle for his real, not wooden leg. With the detail added to the Miner's tale, the occasional sound of chain rattling could send even the least cooperative youngsters scurrying indoors. The last summer before Camp Kuvtsva closed for good, one young counselor decided to try and impress another counselor he really liked. He bragged about not being afraid of Miner's ghost, adding that he didn't even believe it existed. Then he agreed to be tied up to a tree deep in the woods and spend the night there. The next morning, when the other counselors went to untie him, they found that his hair had turned completely white and he had a glazed look in his eyes. When his friends asked him what had happened, he wouldn't talk about it. Not then and not ever again. Everyone assumed that Miner had paid him a visit. It's said that after Camp Kuvtsva closed, Miner's ghost finally moved on, but not to some peaceful afterlife. He just moved on to another summer camp and another, haunting campers all across the province, especially on July 1st, the anniversary of his death. The sound of him stomping around in the bush on his wooden leg, dragging a ball and chain, warns them that he's near. At least that's what some camp counselors tell youngsters when they arrive on the Canada Day weekend. looking forward to their first stay at a summer camp. After hearing Miner's story, the campers huddle in their sleeping bags and lie awake in the darkness, hoping they won't hear any strange sounds outside their tent or bunkhouse. There's terror in their hearts, even if the tale of Anson Miner isn't really true. Ghosts on his mind, Canmore, Alberta. In 1994, Don Hill, musician, filmmaker, writer, and CBC radio host, was a haunted man. He was haunted by what he and his family had experienced while living in a house they had bought in Canmore, Alberta. The unexplained noises, the chilling sense of an invisible presence, the sudden overwhelming waves of fear, and the ghostly apparition of a glowing life-size shape. It was finally in 1994, all too much for Hill and his family. He put the house up for sale and they moved out as soon as it was sold. But Hill wasn't able to hit a mental delete button and get rid of the memories of that terrifying experiences. So he decided to try to find out why they had occurred. Over the next 4 years, Hill interviewed doctors, scientists, and spiritual advisors in search of answers. One of the people he consulted was Dr. Michael Persinger, a professor of neuroscience, the study of the brain and how it works. At Laurentian University in Sudbury, Ontario, after talking with Persinger by phone, Hill went to Sudbury to learn more about his work and to take part in one of the professor's experiments. In Persinger's brain science lab, a small soundproof chamber lit only by a single red light. Hill sat in a chamber, eyes covered, with a tight-fitting, electrically wired helmet on his head. Then he let his brain be stimulated by electromagnetic waves coming from a controlled flow of electricity through the wires in the helmet. Imagine his surprise and horror when, after several minutes, he saw an apparition that looked a lot like the ghost that had haunted his house in Canmore. But had the ghost followed him, or was it simply the product of unusual electrical activity in his brain? After years of research, Persinger thought that the second explanation was a possible answer to Hill's question. According to the neuroscience theory, electrical activity in the brain may also account for people's beliefs that they've seen aliens or angels. But if electromagnetic waves explain the reappearance of the ghost that haunted Hill's house in Canmore, what caused the unusual electrical brain activity in the first place? And not just in Hill's head, but in the heads of the rest of his family. These are questions to which Hill never got an answer.
Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking my channel, and I will see you on the next one.